Hello, my name is Harry Woodgate and I'm the author and illustrator of Grandad's Camper. Grandad's Camper is a story which is all about a little girl who loves going to visit her granddad at the seaside, and they do all sorts of lovely things together, but one of the things that she loves most is listening to Grandad talk all about the adventures that he used to go on with his late husband Gramps in their vintage camper van. And since Gramps has died, Grandad just doesn't have that same thirst for adventure anymore, and he doesn't want to go out and enjoy the world. So his granddaughter comes up with a clever plan to inspire him and get him adventuring again. I wrote this book for a couple of reasons. The first is that when I was at university, I did a lot of research into the representation of LGBTQ+ characters in picture books, in terms of how often they were represented, the kinds of stories that they were featured in, and also the people who are writing and illustrating and publishing these books. And one of the things that I found out, which was quite interesting to me, was that there was a lack of older characters who identified as being part of the LGBTQ+ community. So I thought that it would be really lovely to write a book which was all about these two grandparents who had this loving relationship, and they lived a life together and they brought up a family, and where the whole central point of the story was that this is something to be loved and celebrated rather than an obstacle to be overcome. The other big inspiration for the book was this theme of loss and grief and dealing with the experience of losing a loved one, because this is something that we're all going to deal with at some point in our lives, you know, whether it's when we're kids or when we're adults, and it's always confusing, it's always difficult, it's always threaded through with all sorts of different emotions. So I wanted to write something that was still warm and hopeful, and which showed that by supporting each other and showing love and showing affection, we can get through these difficult times and find ways to celebrate and honour the lives of the people who we were really close to. How and why did I become an author and illustrator? Well, my mum always loves telling everybody that when I was 3 or 4, still in nursery school, I said to all my teachers and all of my family, I'm going to become an author and illustrator when I grow up. I was a voracious reader. I read so much. I consumed books, and I kind of cycled through a lot of other things as I grew up, but writing and illustrating were the things that I always came back to. So it felt natural. It was meant to be. As for how I became an author and illustrator, after I left school, one of my art teachers suggested that I apply to study illustration at university, so that's what I did. I went to university, studied illustration, had a brilliant time. It was honestly one of the best experiences that I've had. And as I went through university, I started contacting people I wanted to work for. I started writing stories, Grandad's Camper being the first one that got published. And eventually then I met my agent, and I met the people who eventually published Grandad's Camper, Anderson Press in the UK and then Little B in the States, and it blossomed from there. It was very nice. I'm very fortuitous and I am very lucky. So the way that I illustrated the book started with doing lots of sketches in my sketchbook of the different things that were going to feature in the story. So the camper van, some of the buildings. I did some pictures of what Grandad might look like. And then once I'd done those, I moved on to doing some possible layouts for the book itself. So if you keep this in your mind, this is the first page of the book. You can see the final version looks a little bit like that. So you can see that the layout is much the same, but some of the characters have changed and developed. So sometimes it stays the same from the sketch to the final artwork, sometimes it changes completely and it looks completely different by the time that it gets published. The next stage, which is where it gets a bit messy, I hope I don't drop everything, is I do loads and loads of big painted sheets of paper in lots of different colours, lots of different textures, and I scan all of those into the computer and then kind of collage them together on the computer, and that's how I make the finished artworks. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this little insight into how I made Grandad's Camper. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the book if you've got a copy or if you decide to grab one. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely day.